then people that are thinking about their own future, right? They're thinking about their families, their friends, and so on, rather than a company that's thinking mostly about the profit motive and so on. I'm done.
think a few places where the regulation can be done, whether that's like a government or community driven or more like a commercial company driven, is where the real resources are. One example is military, where it is, mostly in the world is driven by the governments. In many countries, they do have certain chains of responsibility or control, like people have ultimately, to a certain degree. And I think this is one of the fears that we do have, that if we make autonomous killing machines or some kind of a very, very quick and sophisticated system which can, start nukes somewhere in the air, then just because that, in this case, a certain country will have an advantage over other countries, then there could be agreements. We already had some agreements about the nuclear disarmament, which don't work that well the last days, but they did work over a certain period of time, and that led to real disarmament and a significant improvement situation. So maybe we can go back to that. On the other side, the Max, you mentioned autonomous cars, but I think I wouldn't want let's say I have an autonomous car, I don't, but I wouldn't want it to connect to some servers while it's driving to make a decision whether to stop or move faster. So I guess that's actually the case where the software is being put into the car, and probably if you go offline, it still moves on. The car still drives where it needs to go. So that's by the way another example, because since you put it in the car and the car industry is regulated, then probably you can regulate what it does, and it probably has to be regulated there because there's a lot of ethical questions, actually many more than when a human is driving a car, because we kind of suggest that the human in the car is ethical, and we just ask this human like not to drink a lot of alcohol before that. So basically keep the human in line with some ethics, and it works to a certain extent. So that's kind of two examples. We can probably come up with some other where it's just linked to the real world.
But we know what happened with the regulated cars, right? That they cheated the air quality, for example, right? So yeah, it is possible to advocate for government regulations, but companies do everything to bypass them, and then they also fight back to remove those laws. Again, for example, in the US, they are now fighting the child labor laws, where they keep passing laws that reduce the age, changed again which jobs children can do or not, and so on. So it's a constant battle.
That's a way to look at it, but on the other hand, look, those regulations about the child labor was already there, right? So first, at a certain period of time, US people, American people put them there. So they, it won't be probably ideal, but
yes, I know.
For example,
So
the standardization.
I know, but think about AI. I know it's not. That's why I'm saying that it's not ideal. And think about the consequences. Okay, think about the consequences of, let's say, right? A lot of people talking about rogue AIs. I'm not. I don't think that that's a really possibility. But let's take that as an example. That one mistake that the company doing things behind the scenes, and they decide to pass on regulation, not to be try to cheat regulation. The result of that is going to be disastrous, right? So it's something we have to understand, that AI could be something that's much more powerful, much more dangerous than companies cheating the air quality of the cars.
Agree. Yeah.
So it just occurred to me whilst you're having this fascinating discussion, sort of look at it the other way around. What if you regulate because let's assume the AIs are going to do what they're going to, we all know what they're going to do, right? Like the speed they're evolving, it's like, no, come on. I mean, GPT-4 sometimes innovates at the same time I do when I'm talking to it stuff. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Do you know what I mean? So potentially what we regulate is what resources we allocate to which AIs. Do you know what I mean? Then, then it's sort of democratic. It's like, I support that AI. That's our resources, right? You know what I mean? And yeah, it's interesting.
AI is a lot like, things that are coming out of universities, right? Universities are holding, the general knowledge. That's knowledge that we do together, and we output something that the whole society can benefit from. Someone asked you about like the role of Web3 in regulation and open source. So I think that's like the great case for Web3. My point of view is Web3 is good for two things. One is experimenting with new business models, and the second thing is experimenting with new governance structures. And it gives you this ability to coordinate on governance in larger scale, try different. We know that nobody wants to do direct democracy, right? But things like quadratic voting or delegation, all those kind of possibilities. There are lots of possibilities how to really help to automate all that stuff. So I think that's where Web3 can really shine with AI.
I like that idea if, to apply these experiments. And in e-government, 10 years ago, they introduced these sandboxes. Also in the EU, you have now a blockchain sandbox. Maybe that could be a field to build into regulation, that there's a bit of a field where people can experiment, and groups, as you suggested, can take some of those examples, voting mechanisms, DAOs, and see what happens if you govern an AI in a common shared or common owned environment. It doesn't have to be a final answer. It can be a joint learning journey. It can be supported by universities and research and something like that. But I think what should happen is to take these experiences from the Web3 now the next step further and saying, okay, what really works? Where are the risks in there? And yeah, I think it could be a next phase in the Web3 development, instead of just governing, let's say, online games or DeFi. But I think it can have different use cases now with AI.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe, yeah, universities, right? That like, I wonder what happened with Stanford. They have this tendency to release things to the public and then they disappear. They did that with the vaccine, and now they did that with the model they released, the Llama model or something for AI, and it disappeared from the web. But yeah, maybe some kind of a good idea would be to experiment with universities around that, around governing and co-developing the AI that they are developing. Try to do that in an open source and collaborative and Web3 governed and all that. That would be a good starting point, I think.
I was also looking at some point at the sovereign data funds. Like if we look at some cultural data like generated, again, currently there's one of the big like imbalances is most of the, for example, if you take ChatGPT, most of the models are in English. It also creates some it's much better working in English, of course, than in another language. But also, if we say like there is some cultural capital of a country, like based on, like I'm from Ukraine, so like taking Ukraine literature or something else, then there might be some proceeds of that, go into like some fund for the people or for the development of that culture.
And we can even take even further. I mean, I'm from Ukraine too, and that's a big issue here. But and there's also some political background to that and others, which would be more specific, probably special than the countries and cultures of the same size. But there are also smaller cultures. Many of them are disappearing, and there's first of all languages, right, as basis of cultures, and many of them would have a lot of special knowledge, right, which could be, for example, related to the ecological surrounding that they have, ecological environment. So I don't know, many people in Amazonia or in Papua New Guinea probably don't, the languages don't disappear that fast, but I'm not sure about that. So there could be a lot of help there. I know how Web3 technologies may work here, but it's definitely something that AI can do, and maybe things like the sharing of the ownership. That's where I think the greatest usage of Web3 technology could be.
Max, can you explain again what you meant about the sovereign fund?
Yeah, like if we could index somehow the existing sources, like for example books or something, into the fund, and then somehow track that AI had accessed it, or like can learn from it or take something from it. If we can connect that to the to these kind of requests, then we can allow
the AI would have to pay for the knowledge of the country.
Yeah. Because we pay for like the same ChatGPT, something like $10 per month again, and if it would be like 30 cents, sent to the data source, not just OpenAI or something. We're slowly kicking into like it's just like almost the same direction of the session from Stepa on the privacy and models. So feel free to kick in.
Yeah, exactly. We contribute all the knowledge to the AI, so we should get something out of it. And yeah, there's also like something that Alex just mentioned about other communities. So there's also small communities. There's also the problem of AI bias, right? That it doesn't include small or niche knowledge from different communities, right? So the answers that AI gives might not include some knowledge that these communities have for thousands of years, but it's just a niche knowledge, and maybe it's not even on the web or stuff like that. So it doesn't know what kind of what's the score to give this knowledge versus other things when it comes to answer a question or to decide something to do. Right, so that's also something that you have to take care when you regulate things, right? How do you avoid AI bias?
So in general, to me now, it seems that that's actually all the same question, where you start from one person or small special communities, or very large communities like Ukraine would be with some sort of intellectual property already generated. We currently have no way to benefit those people who are generated the knowledge, and that already happened a lot historically. Like I'm thinking right now, since I mentioned, I don't know, small nations which might be endangered. I mean, their culture might be endangered. First of all, like, did we really pay the native people of Mexico or Brazil for all the knowledge we are now gaining around psychotropic I don't know, substances, right? In which it looks like that the humanity is on the way to benefit from it to help with various kind of mental states. Do we, and that's the original knowledge, and wherever we look for that. So yeah, and it things like this question is no different when it's a particular person who is, I don't know, an artist or intellectual of a sort, an engineer, and who contributed, and it seems like that there's no mechanism now to work for that. And I'm now thinking that for some reason that question is not that much in the focus. I mean, it's been talked about, but it's not that much in the focus of regulation as the general regulation which would prevent any kinds of catastrophe which may be caused by AI, I don't know, overtaking humans or anything similar. Do you have the same impression that it actually has a little, somewhat less in?
Hey Blair, just connected to help you out as we're in the middle of the process. There are 3 rooms open. Do you know which room you want to join?
Hi, Max. What are the 3 rooms? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So we collectively planned the agenda. So you could see, like I'll send the link to the Miro board in Zoom here in chat. So 3 topics we have now, or even 4, is in room 8, AI facilitated communications for Web3 organizations. Then there is like AI and the impact on work. Then there is open source models and privacy for data, and the social spiritual arts and technological boom room.
Ooh, cool. I'll do the OSS and private decentralized data.
Okay. I'll move you now, but
the Miro board.
Yeah, and you can switch to any room through the breakout rooms functionality. It's on the like 4 icons,
Okay.
but I'll move you now, and you can switch later if you like.
But it's then privately distributed. And UBI, basically what it means is that we distribute the value equally to everyone, because everyone times and knowledge, time, or at least time is worth, probably should worth equal. So that's I think the basic concept of why we need to leverage AI for UBI. And from my point of view, also UBI is the most decentralized, or the most decentralized way to distribute money, because everybody gets the same, and then everybody gets to decide has the same power to decide what they want to do with this money. Yeah, and the second part, like I said, is so first of all, if anyone wants to add to that or ask anything. You're on mute, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, right? I mean, this kind of utopic approach of how at the, because here we talk about that in the international scale, right? I mean,
no, well, that's the utopia, right? That's the utopian idea, or the end game, when we do that right on a state scale or international scale. But what I would like, that's the second part, is how can we start in small steps? That's my question here. For example, how we can develop, how can we nurture open source UBI, open source AI, right? Because there are open source models that do different things, build services around them, offer these services at cost, but then the cost would go back to develop those services again, but also part of the profits would go to UBI through crypto, for example, right? Through what we do in Good Dollar or other projects. There are other crypto projects. So that's a way to start small and start distributing small amounts of money, not to everyone, but to groups of people, and so on.
Two main components, right? I mean, definitely we know about this circular economy model with community funds. I mean, that you've got already being developed in the Web3 ecosystem, right? So I think, and so here we of course we have the governance issue about how we manage funds, but first question is what is monetized here, and definitely here it's maybe more difficult is about monetizing the AI based services, but okay, so we collect funds, we've got some some community funds for developments but this part to the whole community. I'm not sure I'm clear about okay, not everybody, but how do we consider that what is will be like first a token handler will have some share about these common funds being redistributed in a equal manner, or what could be the
You're asking about like the technicalities of how we would accomplish such a distribution of money?
Not really. The question is who first, who do you say, okay, you have access to these funds, you've got some share, so who are you to be identified as being a recipient? I mean, how do we define this circle, so this opening circle of people benefiting from such a system being established?
Yeah. Well, today today basically UBI is universal, right? So everyone should be able to. The idea is that it's universal, that everyone should be able to access it. And for example, with Good Dollar or other UBI project in crypto, we do some kind of a uniqueness check, right? If you look at proof of humanity, for example, there are also a crypto UBI project. If you want to register and receive UBI, you have to upload your video, and then people have to check your video and vet and vote you in, simply vote you in, vote that you are a real human being. And that's how you get accepted. And the moment you get accepted, you get UBI like everyone else. And it's the same thing that we do at Good Dollar. When you open a wallet and you want to start receiving free UBI, we verify you that you're a unique human. We do that with also with AI, with face verification. We check that your face is unique in the current pool of people that already registered. So the moment that we decide that you're unique, you can start receiving UBI like everyone else. So yeah, so in our system, it's more centralized, right? Because we want to be able to scale. But there is an opening here, like Proof of Humanity does, which is basically based on voting. We vote in new people, which is a more democratic way. So in the future, there will be, I don't see a reason why there shouldn't be different mechanisms to decide who is a real person that should receive UBI. Also, let's say that there's this AI project that distributes, a certain percentage of his profits to UBI, then initially we can say, hey, maybe these project people, they can say, okay, we want to give UBI, but we want it to be for people from the Congo, women from Congo. Maybe they have some say in that. Maybe they can vote. Maybe we can say that they can say where 50% of the UBI would go, right? So we can think of different governance structure and different rules for how to decide how to distribute the UBI. But the most important thing is that eventually I think that the top level thing, even for Good Dollar, is that the project is governed by some sort of a DAO, right? Some sort of and it should be some sort of pseudo-democratic process, right? We don't want it to be governed like with money voting, but more about with reputation or one person, one vote, or these kinds of things. But we can, right? We shouldn't be limited, right, to one of these funds.
There are ways. Problem is probably the potential noise about this can be a EV management. I mean, but yes, you're right that there are governance subcommittees. There can be such an organization which is trustless that can be set up, and definitely this revenue sharing being administrated collectively. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
One potential. Sorry. Yeah, please.
No, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I enjoy this vision. I'm just thinking about the transition to it. Like, for example, current big players in AI, like OpenAI, they have invested lots of money, and of course, not all money, but money of investors. So one of the first problems I would see is like how that would go to the open source, because even besides the intellectual property, it's also as far as I understand, requires quite extensive computing power. As for example, with like bot from Microsoft, they limited the request for 10 per person because every request costs for them pretty much more than they can cover with ads, for example. So even taking it to the autonomous level, you know, that, for example, we agree, like there is like a Earth AI DAO, right? There's like thousands of people, you know, like some researchers and so on. And so everybody agreed to work on the AI that will, like, where money will proceed to the humanity. But one of the first things to cover would be all of that extensive cost of at least computing, you know. So it should be either really high value work at some point, then it would be much higher than the computing cost, then it would make sense that somebody would pay for this.
So there are two aspects to it in AI. I think that the most intensive process is where you train the model. I think that's the most expensive one. And then when you already have a model and you just have to query the model, then it's much less expensive, right? It's like running a backend server, and it has its own costs, but obviously these costs are minimal relative to the profits that these companies generate from giving the service. Because what makes the profit is that you have this model that knows how to give good answers. And then you can, because once, if you're a monopoly and you only have this model, then, or if it's just a group of, I don't know, 3-4 companies, then they can probably all give the same price and generate a lot of profits out of it. So that's the main question. Like I said in the previous channel, then one of the options is maybe through universities, right? Universities have access to all this computing power, and they can generate powerful models. That could be a step for a way to be able to access such a good model that can compete with others, and basically would be done with the public funds. And yeah, maybe the other option is also to do some kind of fundraising with on the crypto level, on Web3 level. Maybe it's also a possibility, but you're definitely right that there are obstacles to that if we want to compete with the quality of the big companies. But there are also other things that could be done cheaply. Yeah, there are different AI services not related to ChatGPT. There are services related to face recognition, which is there are lots of open source software around that, and services can be built around that. So I think it's more of a support, how you bootstrap those services, how you can support those services and bootstrap them, bootstrap these companies, and help them achieve, achieve some kind of a market success.
I saw in some interviews, Sam Altman from OpenAI said like that the technology behind ChatGPT is really good, but the product itself is kind of bad. I think what he meant is that, it's kind of interesting to work with a chat. Like there's like lots of uses, but there's also not like a full guarantee on some use case, right? So it can lie to you, as like we saw, like for example, some lawyers started to use it and it started to like dream some precedents that never happened or something. So in that sense, again, people now pay like what, $10 per month if we say like AI will conduct some work for them, so people would pay some amount for taking out some routine task, as they pay for like some SaaS software or something. But the gap usually between the open source and the commercial stuff is huge. Like compare like Linux and usability with that stuff, like people would pay.
In the beginning, but today Linux or Ubuntu or all these open source based on Linux, right? They're very user friendly, and you can use them like almost like you use Windows. And what you were saying, you're also right. I mean, it's not about. That's also a possibility. The thing is that you have to build a good software. That software can also rely on closed source AI, but create a product that people are willing to pay for. And again, the only question is who owns that product, right? Is that product geared toward generating profits only for the for the shareholders, or does it have some kind of another profit sharing model, right? One that goes towards the developers, the people that build the product, and also shared with the global community or for UBI. So I think it's more about developing new business models. But we have to remember that there's a network effect, right? That will strengthen. The more that you have such projects, they will strengthen each other and will gain more popularity with the users. So there will be more demand for such models. But yeah, again, the first steps could be to just leverage existing AI and build better UI, better UX on these on the existing ChatGPT and so on.
I would be really curious, to do something in this space. So we're now like just discussing, but in the time ahead of us, this is something I might be interested to do. But as the logical milestone in developing that idea would potentially be not the fundraising or not even the launch of it, but rather creating the first stable income, that it will generate like even $1,000 per month or something, but it will really generate a sustainable income. And to be honest, so far I can't see where it can happen. It's potentially like a lot of use cases. I know I've seen like some people are marketing, hey, I used AI to generate a book and I now earned like $5,000 from these books generated with AI with like illustrations. But that for me is not a sustainable model, because like it can work once or two times, but potentially without like human mind and like some novelty, it won't be a sustainable thing. Or where like some stuff like ChatGPT or like autonomous cars might get generate, you could see like how auto companies would pay for this, or like and consumers would pay for this, but it also only will work on the huge scale. So there's no middle ground, like no small thing you can potentially do. It's like only like big capital investments that can lead to that.
So, well, I tend to disagree on that. I think, let's say, for example, let's take, for example, I don't know, image generation, for example. Okay, so, and let's say, so we have a lot of people from emerging markets that they can't afford the current AI services. And again, we can take an open source model that it costs you nothing to create, to develop, and it doesn't require a lot of horsepower, and you can give maybe a little bit less in functionality. The image generation would not be perfect, would not be like the top notch, but it could be sold for a reasonable price for people that can't afford the top-notch thing, and it would still improve their workflow and output, and so on. So I think there could be, markets for that, and especially if you build, like we said, especially if you build good UI on top of existing services. So I think that you can build things that are sustainable in terms of, like subscription things, like the same models that people use in AI today. And that's what I wanted to do here in the second part, and to see if people like have ideas for what kind of services, what services do you need, and you think that people will want. Small services, right? That you would be willing to pay this $1 a month, $2 a month, to have access to. Even, and I thought about not AI stuff, even web hosting, right? You can offer web hosting services for cheap. And so it's all about the right product market fit, I think, and finding the the good idea for a product.
Well, in a way, chatting AI is an interface itself, which is like a natural user interface where you can like do a query, whatever format you like. And maybe the object of monetization for this idea might be rather the unique data. So, for example, if you if there is some super like, unique data that is not like publicly shared, and then you can have access to it through AI, like generate me, like, for example, interested seed, like let me know who's the best expert on this, top 3 expert on that, that might be like a service people would pay for, like $10 per request maybe, so in this like small batches might be possible, but then AI is not an object of monetization. The data is rather, and if you open up this data for anybody to play with it, then again, there's then a market of different AIs, maybe improving of the service or something. But probably it's really hard to restrict the access to the data then, because even like in LinkedIn, you can't easily export all data, but I know companies that were monetizing and they just parsed all the data, all the emails and stuff, to use it as like then in campaigns.
Yeah, how to monetize data? Yeah, that's a hard question that we also think about. Right, for example, when I told you about the segmented UBI pools, let's say you want to create a pool, or let's say you want to reach people that from a certain country, a certain gender, right? How do you keep the data private and locked, right? Because once you create a pool for people from Ukraine and that are women, then everybody knows the wallet addresses that are getting money from this pool are from Ukraine and are of a certain gender. So yeah, locking data is hard, but I think that, again, like we said in AI, I think that data is anyways, it's right, it's anyways public, and the core problem here is finding the product, the UI, the user interface, the UX, things that are that currently a machine doesn't know how to do. Right? That's where humans can shine, and that's where I think you can find a differentiator, right? Create a product that people need, and it's less about maybe it's less about data, but yeah, but if you, like you said, you want to give out unique data, then yeah, that might be a problem. But I think the product is that's where you can maybe find some kind of a niche or product that you can offer.
I've spoken with, like, I was working on one of these products in the Near ecosystem, which was monetizing the services of the data validators. So like they trained their model with help of people from, you know, developing countries that earned like some $300 per month, something like, or $500 per month, just like saying, yeah, it's a cat, yeah, it's a car or something, or not, it's not a car, and different puzzles. Again, there's a market already existing for that, even without Web3. That was like use of blockchain, which is like not bad. But through this, like when I was working on this product, we spoke with one of the companies which was developing specific AI usages. So, for example, what they did, they analyzed the public catalogs of buildings in the area. So, like they could see, you know, like different spaces, their photos, and AI defined what kind of materials are there. So, for example, if the floors are wooden, you know, or if like the windows are plastic and so on, and they monetize this data then in the marketing campaigns. So for the like renovation services, they can tell like, okay, there's like 1,000 places that have wooden floors, and if you're a service provider for wooden floors, you can you know, target that people. I'm thinking like marketing or such use cases are a bit easier to monetize in the sense like it's easier to kind of see the like money flowing, then you can have a percentage from the like sale or something. But that was like an interesting perspective to this narrow use of like hand brute approach to different
Yeah,
users.
you see, these ideas, I would never think about that, to to classify images from buildings to generate leads for people that do work in construction or something like that. Yeah, interesting. How is it related to the near validators? I didn't understand.
Not to the near validators. It was just like in the near ecosystem. It's called, the product is called Near Crowd. So it's like Near Crowd is I meant validation in the sense that I'll send the link to the chat, that when they needed to train AI model and they needed like human verification, so they uploaded this.
That's a great example, you know. So the output of that training, the data that people did, now goes to that company that owns the model, instead of the model being owned by the near community and generating profits, future profits for them, for UBI, right?
Yeah, and they like they earn really like small money. Again, there are like engineers you need to pay, there are service capacities, there's marketing risks, entrepreneurs and stuff. But then my idea went like where to scale this near crowd product is into like cooperatives. Even like the question of the quality, data quality, you know, when people are like doing cheap tasks, you know, in such a system, they, again, in some simple cases, they might be clicking like, yeah, it's yellow, it's red or something.
They don't have an incentive to do good work.
Yeah, but sometimes the questions are like, what kind of what kind of space is it good for? You know, what kind of events can be held in the space, or what is the like air conditioning system is set. It's like maybe not something AI can well know. So that's where like the data quality is taking like importance, but people are not motivated because they are not relying on this data. They are just doing like one-time gig.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of a cooperative certainly goes right hand in hand with the process. It's all about, you know, profit sharing, and definitely, yeah, cooperatives building for their own good and for the good of society. Yeah. So where's the that's a good model. Well, you know, maybe what's where are you still working on it? Are you taking it to the next step to scale it?
No, it was just at the start of the 22nd year, and due to the war, my attention just got distracted with other stuff, and I stopped working on that. And in any sense, that particular project was not specifically looking into the social aspect of it. You know, like even on the level of self-sustainability. In that case, the fees for the validators were paid out of the pocket of the, you can say, AI researchers. There were like AI researcher needed to do data validation, and they were paying in Near. It was connected with Near founders, so they had lots of Near, so they kind of could do this. But I was working on trying to scale that to attract other potential customers. That's where I spoke with those guys who were thinking about leads for the renovations and so on, where we can kind of touch it. But the whole point is, for that validation services, people are not ready to pay a lot. The money is really small, and again, it's becoming even more commodity. So it's even from the perspective of the business, the other business would just capitalize on this and be much more effective than some pro-social DAO that would be poorly coordinated and trying to achieve it. Do you see where I'm leading?
Well, it's all about the coordination. It depends on the size, right? I don't see any reason why. Of course, you need the problem is that you need leaders. You need people with ideas that would be able to organize the people around them, right? I don't think that you can start with a DAO. You can start with small groups, small cooperatives. I think that can work together towards this goal. But yeah, I agree. There are lots of it's not easy. And yeah, the core thing is again finding those things that can be monetized and then working to monetize them instead of just doing the validation, right? Or by validation, you mean the people that classify the image.
Yeah, image tagging, just saying what's in the image.
So we want something that's more than just of course, just image tagging that just pays very little. Like I said, you need to find the product, right? The product ID that you can build. And that's all about empowering. And that's also the part of empowering people from emerging markets, right? From bringing them from being the how do you say it in English? The wood choppers and the water bringers, you empower them to be the entrepreneurs, right? Come up with those ideas and monetize them.
Yeah, but definitely, and that's one of the key points. Sorry, I had to leave, but how do you attract people having such a profitable business idea, and how do you convince them that they better build it into your UBI framework ecosystem? Here, I think what we need as part of this organization, this cooperative, as you mentioned, is maybe to have some funds and to be able to invest. So this is a huge stuff.
So it's exactly like you said it. For example, with Good Dollar, what we want to do, we are starting to release grants. There's also part of the UBI that we distribute also goes to a community pool.
Right.
And the whole idea is to offer to the community, hey, we're looking for entrepreneurs. we have some small budgets for you to start a business, and these are the conditions. It has to be run. Maybe it has to be a cooperative, or maybe at some point it has to become a cooperative. It has to give out X percentage of the profits to back to UBI. Yeah, that's how you have to fund it. That's the problem today with the current states. Right? If I look at the state system, then the state currently mostly fund private businesses. Right? They don't have. Some states have some some specific models. For example, Italy. For example, in Italy, I heard that people that get unemployment, if they want to start a cooperative, they can join together and get all their unemployment in bulk, right? So they have a specific support to build cooperatives. Yeah, it's not going to, cooperatives will not be able to compete with the free market unless you give them the right support. Also in Israel, the kibbutzim, how did I'm a kibbutz member, how did the kibbutzim were able to become a really significant force in the Israeli economy? In the beginning, when Israel started, they provided a lot of support for kibbutzim, right? But today they shifted. They no longer support kibbutzim. So there are no new kibbutzim almost, and they provide most of the funding and benefits to the private companies. So yeah, we have to support these new types of models with funding. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This is huge, right? But I think, yeah, let's start with the idea of having the infra, at least for cooperative, and yes, having it either seed other such cooperatives, and not to, I don't know, yeah, the problem also is to manage your growth, right? I mean, how do you expand? How do you manage all these steps? But this is very interesting, definitely. But to put in practice, that's a real big challenge. But I guess there is some stuff. But Ada, I guess you did look at it. I mean, there must be already
that's the vision. I didn't look at it. I know what we are trying to do. But like the AI and UBI and Web3 is just an idea. But I do know that we do need to give funding to people, to entrepreneurs, right? Because the main problem of the people in emerging markets is credit and access to money. That's one of their biggest challenges, regardless of what the big vision that we have here for UBI and AI. Even just to start a small shop in the street, it's very hard for them to achieve.
I see currently there is the other session in the room A about data commons. Feels like pretty much in line with what we talk about.
Yeah, we've been talking here for a while now. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Ada, for this very interesting topic. I mean, this is huge and very, very interesting. And yeah, I will be interested in having some pointers about such initiative. And I'm more interested by the infra also, but because this is where I could contribute. But yeah,
let's keep in touch. And I'm just writing in the chat. Oops. My Calendly, if you want to continue this conversation, then you can schedule with me anytime you want.
Okay, Toda.
No problem. Bye, everyone. See you in room A.
Bye.
Thank you.
Say, like, you guys are talking about this reputation, and it keeps coming to my head about creating trust between the contributors, and it's I don't know, for me it's more like reputation. It's very sensitive in Web3 because like you can make one mistake and then you kind of have that mark forever in your back. But like it's almost like you can't do any different than that. Like you can't learn from your mistake or you can grow after that. So I think there is a thin line between what's in this space and what is the reality. So for me, I understand that it's more about the value that we can also bring to the community that we want to help. So that's why I say like creating the trust, because like you can be someone that you made a mistake in the past. You know, the Web3 system is very complicated, and especially when you're new, there's a lot of things still to learn. But like that's the point, like you learn and you make it different from that point. So then you build trust within the people that you work with, and that trust, like people around you will know you. And when somebody say like, oh no, yeah, but that person made a huge mistake in the past, and then the people that work with you who knows you can also say like, okay, I understand, but I don't put that in them. I don't see them that way. I see the work and the value that they bring to the community, and I trust this person. I've been working with this person for X time, and I know that like they made a mistake and they regret it, but it's not who they are. Like that, we can't let something like that be representative of the person itself. So I think when we work on that, when we have that perspective of building the trust within the people in Web3, for me at least, and for the people that I work with, we see that as more valuable than just like what their names are known out there. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Well,
I
I'm
agree.
also I also have another point to raise, like when it comes to reputation. I'm curious how we can make sure that the reputation of system that we establish is fair. Like I know that they're like silent workers who bring so much value in the community that we don't know of. How can you make sure that their reputation is equally valuable or high, or the same as other people who are working and being whose work are much visible. So it's something that maybe we can I don't know how we can solve in if there's a solution or a formula in making sure that this reputation system is fair for stakeholders that are not as visible as the other people in the community but are doing great work in the and so that's something I want to raise.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really valid point, right? That it's easier, like with praise, for example, it's very easy to give praise to the people that you know the most, right? So it's almost like becomes a little bit like a popularity thing, right? Rather than a contribution thing. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
Andrea, do you want to
Yeah,
add
I have a question. Does anyone have or know of an example which they think a reputation kind of system has been implemented well, especially one that uses kind of the quantitative metrics plus more the human element? Are there any examples of like projects that are doing that well, or at least getting close to it?
I think I have one, but I'll preface it a little bit with kind of like what we're talking about around the intent or the objective of reputation, right? I think that's really important. The context is really important, right? Because should this person get a grant? Should I give them money? Is different than is this person, a cheerleader for the group and brings people together. Those are different things, right? So the reason I say is that this project called Coordinate, if you probably have, some of you have heard of it. But basically what they do is they have these circles, right? It's for people small teams that work together. And then at the end of each epoch, they give each other, tokens, right? So everyone gets like something like 100 tokens. And then by the end of the project, you say who contributed the most, and you can't keep the tokens, you have to give them out, right? And in that way, everybody kind of like the the subjective contribution of everyone in that smaller team, right? This works probably well with small teams, not with huge teams. Gets calibrated, and then yeah, people kind of like know who, at least from the team's point of view, who contributed the most, right? And I think that even the payment, they can decide to actually split payments based on the amount of contribution that they give each other, right? So it could be like one person is really like amazing and they've been doing most of the work, and they get most of the payment for that project, right? I can write it because it's spelled weird.
Andrea, do you want to add something, or it's just praise because get frozen?
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
just would like to know more examples. Just I'd like to investigate this topic a bit further, and just having those examples just really helps. But yeah, if anyone knows of any other ones, then just like feel free to share it or write it in the document. I'm really interested.
Yes. Well, praise is the one that it is used on Trust.seed. I don't know if you had the opportunity to interact with it, but it is yeah, it is a great tool. It started just as a way of acknowledge people and contributions, and has been evolving since then. And now even use AI to provide profiles of specific people. You can ask the tool to provide a profile. For example, if you look at me, you can see what I have been working on, based on the data, of course, it's receiving from others. So it is a way of really, yeah, perceive that, yeah, that information in another way. It also enables to have this acknowledgement of each contribution. Of course, this is still keep evolving over time, but I think it's a really good successful tool. Coordinate, this is the other one that I'm actually adding to the documentation here, and is a very nice tool. Also, if I'm not wrong, TC was using praise with another tool. I'm not sure if it is coordinate, but they're combining tools also to reach this yeah, it is successful for saying it, a successful implementation on find better ways of as Ivy also mentioned, better ways of equally distribute and provide some visibility to others. We are still trying to reach out the perfect way of doing it, right? There are other, of course, tools available in the ecosystem. These are just the most, the one we know. If anyone else has any other, we can add it here. But yeah, I can just talk about praise. That's the one I really enjoy and I use because, of course, it is in more embedded in our ecosystem, in the Givat Galaxy overall. Anyone else? Oh, there is a pending question here. How do we or you can launch a token nowadays? Source grid. Yeah, that's the one. Source grid. Well, let's put it here. Thanks, Liz. Oh, seems like hey Max, do we still have time to keep the discussion going, or?
Yeah. We have until like another 40 minutes for the discussion. So it's kind of, I see like it went a bit maybe ahead of schedule, because I thought like there should be finishing the data commons session, and reputation system in Web3 would come just after that, which is not a problem, just but what was in the agenda.
Yes. Well, we don't know who added this
Ah, I see, I
Discord.
see.
That's the problem. So we started like, hey, let's pick this one. And we started discussing about this. But yeah, if anyone, I mean, if the person that added these ideas is here, we can jump to another topic probably, or just keep brainstorming around reputation systems.
So from few sessions I visited, you know, like it initially was the regulation, then the like UBI and like privacy and stuff. Some of the ideas, and again, like reputation here, some of the ideas are that the real monetization factor in the systems is more data rather than the model, because like model is once trained, and then it's like more or less again just computing power. But the problem is, or like the interesting aspect of it is, can AI be interfaced to really unique data? You know, if like, and I think reputation is something like this data. I've heard some rave stories about, you know, somebody doing a recommendation, you know, introduction to some people and like earning like $1 million commission out of this recommendation. I think during COVID, there was a guy who connected Korean mask producers with some US hospital and earned like $1 million a day as a fee from that connection. And again, I'm not saying like it's maybe a radical case, but I'm now coming, you know, as we will like probably start building something within Trusted Seed after this conference, hopefully. And we're always looking how to support commons and so on. So it, for me, it kind of navigates towards the unique AI, like unique information we can somehow aggregate and make sense of it through the AI, not taking some person always knowing like everybody or like every other aspect of who's doing what. So I just wanted to share this like meta perspective on what we were discussing, and that reputation. Again, like for example, we have this trust score reputation, which is just a number. You know, it says like, yeah, this is like a big contributor or a small contributor. But for example, recently the guys from Praise, they started to like aggregate the like or generate profiles for contributors based on the with AI based on the praises they got. So that generated like a whole set of new information or like interesting information that can be used for the networking or building connections. So I might want to explore this a bit more, you know, how we as a community can you know, get together our collective knowledge and then build a successful product, proceeds of which can go to the community fund or something.
Also, speaking about trust, you can also mention Max or upcoming working group speaking about reputation inside Trust Seed too.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting work now happening along reputation. And what I learned so far, you know, we're gathering a working group. There are like, for example, the guys who built something called region score, as like there was like Degen score, like this region score. We also like wanted to extend our data, not just based on the what we know about people, but maybe also include like what kind of other like region tokens they support or like their reputation in the other communities. There is one of the projects which is made for the artists or like creatives that does something like that based on the like also like some profile generation based on the tweeters of people. So like what kind of art do they provide and what are the topics and so on. So I'm just thinking about this kind of meta collaboration between like computational layers to make use of this data and yeah, create some useful products for the community itself, first of all, but then potentially monetize it.
Thanks.
Yeah, just connecting to that, one thing that I think would be quite interesting would be, for example, if each organization, each project, each community has its own mechanism for the if each community, like project organization now, has its own reputation system to like give to the contributors, how could you possibly have an AI analyzing kind of this network of subjective somehow reputations? So, for instance, if you're let's say like a refi project looking for to get additional contributors that already have like some experience in the refi ecosystem, how could you have, for example, a network, kind of like a graph of all different organizations that uses this they use these reputation systems, and then basically weight what would be the reputation relevant to this specific application, like considering the interconnectedness of things. So giving kind of a more concrete example, like if you're like a refi project and wants to get like someone like contributor for a specific role, it would be more relevant to see the reputation that someone got from other refi projects than from I don't know, like some DeFi protocols, for instance. How could you have kind of like this weight, like according to the relationships like between projects, between ecosystems, to see what is the relevant reputation for of a person would be for a specific context?
There's a little bit of background noise here, so I apologize if you can hear music. But I've worked a little bit in digital identity and reputation stuff over the last decade, mostly as part of the Rebooting Web of Trust community, if any of you are familiar with that. But early on at that first Rebooting Web of Trust event, some folks that I had known for a while through the Internet Identity Workshop encouraged some of us that were working on the design of reputation system stuff to keep in mind a principle, and that was it's tempting oftentimes when you're trying to design reputation systems to focus on the behavior that you want to prevent, like the bad actions you want to keep from happening. And Randy Farmer, who wrote the book on building web reputation systems and dealt with reputation at Yahoo for a long time, as well as one of the creators of the SMTP standard, the standard for email, Dave Crocker, I think. They both encouraged some of us to go, hey, what are the behaviors you want to grow? When you're designing reputation systems, focus primarily on recognizing the behaviors you're wanting to encourage, as opposed to the behaviors that you're wanting to discourage. If you focus on the behaviors you're wanting to prevent, you often end up designing systems that will have a hard time actually getting that information to flow, because reputation is always about the passing along of information, and people will bend over backwards to try to prevent negative information from getting passed along, but they'll also bend over backwards to try to assist in positive information getting passed along. So you can usually solve the same problems by focusing on what are the behaviors you want to grow, what are the things we want to recognize, how do we want people to establish credibility, right? Or credit, essentially. And you can typically get the same outcomes without having some of the same drawbacks, because in addition to negative focused systems kind of having a hard time with the flow of information, they also often result in really problematic relational patterns within the community, right? Lots of sort of toxic kind of side effects that are just an accidental consequence of your design. So that's a principle that I've tried to keep in mind ever since.
Thank you so much. Such an insightful info. Can you maybe give an example of some relevant reputation system and like how what kind of behaviors stimulus was applied?
Sure. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, if you're wanting people to pick their kids up on time, right? You could focus on bad actor pick their kids up late as the signal, as the grammar, the form of the information that you're wanting to make shareable in that system. Or you could focus on pick their kid up on time. Like I'm signing this statement that says, yep, showed up on time. They're kind of similar, right, in terms of what they actually communicate. But if you focus on, hey, I can show up and ask somebody to watch my kid, and I can bring into this request for, you know, childcare essentially a history of 400 times that I've shown up at 4 o'clock when I said I was going to show up at 4 o'clock to pick up the kid. That is much more likely to work than I've got 3 negative reviews, right? I'm less likely to I might not participate in that system any longer if the only thing that's visible is that I'm bad in these 3 ways, as opposed to the 400 times I was good. Also related to that, if you have people who have established a fair amount of credibility in whatever dimension, right, that is an asset that they carry with them. And if there is negative information in the system, little caveats, warnings from the community about, it's kind of a jerk, or whatever the thing may be, I may still be able to show up with that sort of persona, as opposed to trying to abandon it, which is often the case when you've got systems that are focused on what are the whack-a-mole kind of behaviors we're wanting to avoid or prevent or make less frequent. So yeah, I'll leave that there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking about again, some reputation system might be super prescriptive. Like for example, like how many times you showed up, you want you to show up. But then every like system, like where reputation is like contextual, you know, to the system, systems tend to evolve and these behaviors tend to evolve. Like I'm thinking about like, on the one hand, like for example, in the praise system, it seems like the pattern is just to make people happy, you know, and then they can voice their happiness, but not for the specific thing, not like 5 points for the Gryffindor, you know. It's just like thanks for doing that, or like wow, I didn't expect this, or something. But then it becomes a bit less like, it's kind of rich of information, but then it's then not so easy to make sense of it until you really read all of everything. So it's I'm, for example, like in Trusted Seed, we also have like 3 key like domains of work, and I'm responsible for the domain called rewards. And I'm like looked a bit into like there is like rewards and awards. You know, like rewards was a specific thing done, but awards are just for you being something, you know, and it's super powerful things. All of this tokenomics, everything is like intended to change the behavior or direct the behavior, you know. And like it's super curious how with reputation, like we could reputation is like could be a huge factor for finding job, securing investment, and so on. But it's also not so easy to formalize it, you know. It's not like you can try to trick the system, but it will work only for some brief time. Then like, you know, everybody's trying to appear as somebody, you know, if it's becoming like a pattern, and then it just loses the sense of being authentic to something. People will ask like every reputation system, like now people ask like, yeah, can you give me a plus? I'll give you a plus like in return. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. My background, I work on a project called Holochain, which is not a blockchain, but it's another approach to distributed coordination. And to be honest, a lot of our focus was on enabling communities to evolve their ways of being in relationship and the kinds of games that they want to play together for this very reason. The idea being, you bake something that's fairly rigid in place, and the communities, certain parts of that community are going to figure out ways to exploit that. And so you actually need the capacity to evolve those agreements, those ways of being in relationship. And the other piece I'll say is for the way that I think about this, at least, and I believe that most of us on the holochain, in the holochain community, sort of view it in this way, is we're trying to come together and constrain our ways of being able to interact in particular ways, right? Like we're wanting to go, hey, like these are the reputation systems that we're making use of, or these are the grammars, or this is what we're expecting of one another. And that's useful because it enables us collectively to get sort of a different social behavior that emerges as a result of that. But our lived experience, like you were saying, Max, might be, hey, there's some gaming stuff going on here with tit for tat, basically fraud, right? For juicing how we appear in the system as opposed to what's actually happening, how we're really showing up. And so that's, for us, part of why it's really important that the community be able external to the architecture that's been put in place, the lived experience can enable people to go, ooh, this isn't working well enough. We need to try something different, right? We need to shift something and then be able to do so. The only other thing I'll say is, for me, that pattern of relationship feels very different than one where, you've got some architects, well-meaning perhaps, but who are designing a system that's really kind of incentive-oriented, and that they're in the sense of trying to puppeteer a whole bunch of other humans' behavior, as opposed to us going, what's the game that we're wanting to play together? And is that game that we've currently chosen to play together, is it working well enough for us? And if not, how do we want to change it so that it'll work better? That to me feels like a much more, I don't know, hopeful or like human experience, as opposed to, okay, I've stepped into somebody's little marionette game and I'm now being, forced to dance in these particular ways. That doesn't feel so rich or exciting to me. That feels more scary.
Can we maybe try to have this discussion, like we have some people here, and try to think about the reputation system that would make sense for this small community here, and try this conversation about what games we want to play? How would you initiate that conversation?
I'm brand new to the community. I'm 5 minutes in. So if anybody has any thoughts on kind of, I guess, first and foremost, what is it that is pulling us together, and how are we hoping to interact, right? At this point, for me, it feels like, oh, cool, this is a co-learning opportunity. But I don't know beyond that what the goals and objectives are. I lurked a little on Telegram, but I wasn't involved in many of the organizing pieces. So anybody got thoughts?
I do, but I'll give space just to not overtake all the time.
Let me ask a slightly different question. If any of you, Luis, Simon, Artiste Anonym, Ivy, Catherine, Inisi, Max, if any of you have ideas, let's jot them down in the chat. Let's take 2 minutes and just write anything that comes to mind in the chat so we can do a little bit of parallel work, and then we can kind of come back together as a group and explore. And if there's nothing there, if there's no energy, then there's no energy, but let's give it a shot.
So the question is, what brings us together, and what we want to coordinate on or something?
What are some ways in which this community might be aided by systems that make visible some of the flows of activity. That's how I think of reputation and kind of currencies more general. What are some signals that might be useful for this community and in doing the things that we're interested in doing together?
I put it in just in the chat to not forget, and yeah, I'll gladly think about it. It's super important for me, at least. Hey, Sam. Just a quick context for you. We're talking about the reputation systems, and now like a small individual, like 2 minutes question to find how visible flows of activities can aid the community, and what are you interested to participate as part of the community. Just in case, yeah, I see you on mute. Let me know if you need any help.
Oh, are you in the like a Miro board or something?
Well, we write our ideas just in the Zoom chat, and Yini is sharing the screen where she makes notes out of our conversation.
Okay.
We're finishing our last session before we go into the closing round and retrospective.
Okay, got it.
Mm. Do we need an extra minute, or if somebody is writing ideas? Oh, I see from Luis. We'll probably wait for Matthew to make some sense out of it. Thanks, Ivy. Thanks, Simon. So I see like from the patterns, it's about sharing, exploring, connecting, learning, experimenting, building,
And the
providing.
interconnection.
Yeah, maybe we collected some stuff.
Sorry, I had somebody who I have to have a conversation with who walked up. Like I said, I'm splitting duties right here. This all looks really good though.
So do you think our reputation system that should indicate those kinds of behaviors like sharing, exploring, connecting, learning and stuff?
I think I have to step away again, but I think that's right. I think there's stuff along those lines, and I think there's also things that can be used inside of some of these AI and distributed ledger contexts that have to do with signal to noise, being able to identify, is somebody contributing data into the training of a model that is actually undermining the integrity of that model? So those kinds of things might be useful as well, but that may be too deep in the technical weeds. I think I have to run. But
yeah.
I'm looking forward to
Thanks,
jumping onto the next call.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, unless anybody wants to share some final thoughts on this topic, we can proceed further with the closing session. Thank you so much for this one. So yeah, I'll touch on my screen. We came to the 4 hours of agenda. Not everybody survived to the very end, but thanks for those who did, and for everybody who joined in general. So I would like to proceed with the retrospective now, but before that, just few thoughts administrative wise. Here's the bulletin board where you can put any long-term suggestions. There are already some ideas what you're looking for, resources and stuff in the Miro board, or you can propose. We have a request for our financial sustainability with donations and stuff, we would be really thankful for if you can donate whatever you feel appropriate as your participation or any other type of contribution you would like to make, would be really nice. And we have like lots of sessions ahead of us. Again, anybody can propose a session to the open calendar. We already have some sessions pre-scheduled. You can see them in the shared calendar, or it's just directly to you. So
at the beginning is also a small agenda that Luis created also the beginning of that website. Scroll up. Yes, there. That's the agenda with the upcoming events. And if you scroll down, you will see the details of each assembly. Luis helped creating that that calendar too. So praise to him.
yeah, if you feel like you would like to continue some conversation, I will totally do some after our initial connection, but you can reach to Yini or me, and we have like some format on proposals. It can be anything, but you can maybe tell us what is the title, when do you want it? Do you want it in your Zoom or anywhere else? It's here in the how to plan your activity, just in case there are some ideas here.
I shared the link here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now to the retrospective. Yeah, just again, like the link to the Maribot is here. There are like some sections here. What we liked, what we learned, what we lacked, and what we longed for, kind of what would be like super nice to have further on, not just like what was missing. So if you're okay with this, I will give like maybe 4 minutes to like 5 minutes to write on these cards your ideas. So we will improve and increase the value. Is it okay? Any questions, comments? Okay. Yeah, please.
Congratulations. You are extremely well organized. Yes, it's impressive. Your board is very good.
Thank you so much. I'll put it to the card as well. Do you need an extra minute?
I think will be nice to have an extra minute.
Okay.
Can you drop? I just joined on a different computer. Can you drop the link again into the chat? I apologize.
Of course, no worries. Put to the.
I did it. No, we did it.
Sam, do you need a bit more?
It's okay if you want to finish. I'm kind of coming late, so I don't expect any special.
You can maybe like we'll read what we have, and then you could just verbalize whatever you want as your feedback point. But yeah, like let's check out what we wrote here. Ini, maybe you would like to start with liked and pass it to somebody else to read about learned.
Yes. Well, what we liked was well organized, the people, backgrounds for Zoom, learning new concepts and about new tools, openness, sessions flow, seeing old friends making new ones, and the intro video with AI taking control. I really enjoyed that. Thanks. I probably can pass it to, let's see. Luis, are you there?
Yes, I am. So should I just, should I just like get one part from here or?
Yeah, you can just take learned and just verbalize what's.
Yeah, I think it was like a little bit together with that, with a little bit like also from my side. I think it was interesting to see all the different topics that people and different projects are interested in and working on, and like learning like show that there are these interests and things and like what are these people and that are interested in it.
Okay, maybe you can pass to someone next.
Cool. Ivy?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't write on the Miro board because I'm just on my phone since my laptop crashed, but I took some notes. For me, I liked the new crowd. It's different from the previous participants that we had in the last Unconference. So it's nice to see new faces, but it's also nice to see familiar faces and seeing old friends like Wanka. I also like Max's intro video. It's really interesting, and it's something unique and creative to start the conference. And I also like the open space. I feel like most of the sessions in this conference are like open space for sharing personal experiences rather than discussing like a specific concept or so that's one thing that I also liked because it's something different than what we had in the past conference. what I learned, new tools and how other people use AI, especially from Pedro. Pedro is deep into AI tools. And I feel like I think we lacked some hosts. And it would be nice to have more hosts leading sessions. And what I long for is more in-depth discussions. So yeah, those are all for me. But I'm sure that there are other upcoming sessions where we can have this in-depth discussion. So I'm looking forward to the upcoming sessions. I pass it to artist, or was he the one who?
Artist, are you with us? Can you? Oh.
No, that's just me. I was saying I can jump in if no one else is left or whatever.
Sure.
I missed the whole thing, so this is kind of bad form here, but I was kind of hoping for, as you guys know, I'm building a liquid democracy platform, and I'm busy creating a proposal for how to use AI, or grant about using AI in democracy, basically. So I'm kind of hoping to have that discussion. In fact, I think I will set up a session to discuss that in particular with people, if that's a topic that people might be interested in. And so yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And I think that's all I've got.
Thank you. Simon, would you like to share some closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, right, for this for discovery for me, but it is a very nice community. We had very well organized with tools and just flowing, just so very interesting. And yes, definitely some interesting conversation. And so yeah, I will dig further, and I hope to be able to talk again and let's work together.
Okay, then thank you so much. It's just an opening. We have time ahead of us. It's not just even 2 weeks, even further on, but looking to learn more and have more focus sessions during these 2 weeks. Check out the schedule. Ping if you have any questions, suggestions. This is like community platform, so we are all co-creators here. Don't feel shy or like that it's too much, like every contribution would be really welcome. On this note, thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.